Hello, everybody. Max and Brian here for IGN to talk to you about Resident Evil. Capcom announced that there's going to be a Resident Evil showcase taking place on January 21st, and they're going to be showing off some new stuff from Resident Evil 8 Village, as well as apparently revealing a closed beta test for a multiplayer component. We don't know a whole lot about that, but there's a lot of other Resident Evil stuff on the horizon, including the much-rumored RE4 remake, the Netflix show, the movie reboot that's on the way. So let's talk about some of the stuff that Capcom could be showing off at this showcase. Brian.
Sure. So first things first, you just kind of teased it for a second. This is the 25th anniversary of the Resident Evil franchise. And so to celebrate, Capcom is teasing a brand new game. This is a never before seen, played, revealed, hinted at video game from Capcom in the Resident Evil series in some way. There is an open beta for it. So this is kind of like a first, I think, for video games in general, is to announce a game via a closed beta, which you'll be able to join up as a fan. If you go to a website, you can actually sign up right now and get a chance to play that. They're teasing that is a 4 to 6 player multiplayer game. Now, there's a lot of different things that could connect to. We have seen multiplayer spin-offs and standalone modes in the Resident Evil franchise for years now, decades really, and it's kind of crazy that this is yet another attempt at that, since I don't think that's historically exactly what people are looking for in the Resident Evil franchise.
No, they keep trying to make fetch happen over there.
I know, but Capcom has a good way of sort of being like, okay, you're getting a mainline single-player Resident Evil game, but also we're doing a multiplayer thing. I think they're smart about that.
Do you think it's possible? We actually just got a multiplayer game earlier this year with Resident Evil Resistance, which was, of course, the packed-in multiplayer component that came with RE3 Remake. Do you think it's possible this is something like this? This is the multiplayer component that is technically not 8 Village, but it comes with it?
Yes, that is one of the theories. All right, so let's start there. This could be a spin-off for RE8 Village. That would be pretty awesome, considering they've made all these giant spooky environments, huge, creepy old, dilapidated towns, witches, werewolves. There's a lot of fun there to play with in terms of a multiplayer setting. I think that makes perfect sense. That said, that feels a little too obvious and doesn't necessarily feel like it's its own game, and it also doesn't really seem to celebrate the 25 years of this franchise, as well as something that might be a little bit older. We saw over the last few years the Resident Evil 2 remake. We also saw the Resident Evil 3 remake. Fans like me and you, Max, are hoping for a Resident Evil 4 remake. Resident Evil 4, obviously, chronologically, it makes sense if you look at numbers. Obviously, Code Veronica makes more sense in terms of remakes. We'll get to that in a second. But a cool thing about Resident Evil 4 is that it had its own sort of like pack-in arcadey multiplayer-ish mode called Mercenaries. Resident Evil Mercenaries, part of Resident Evil 4, was fantastic. You could unlock characters and weapons and just run around these multiplayer-shaped environments. This would be really cool if the new multiplayer mode that they're teasing is connected to the Resident Evil 4 remake, and we get, 2 awesome things in one day. This is all completely feasible and possible, because I think that leans into the celebrating 25 years a lot more than a spin-off or a connecting multiplayer mode to Resident Evil 8 does.
Now, obviously, we talk about Resident Evil games a lot because it started out as a game franchise, but it also has numerous movies to its name, and it also has several Netflix shows coming up. There's one live-action one, which doesn't have a release date. There's also an animated series around the corner. What do we know about this?
So, concurrently, there are several different new versions of Resident Evil. Some of them will be told sort of Walking Dead style as long-form television shows, but then there's also just a complete reboot of the movie franchise, which, love it or hate it, you can probably say at this point, it did get a little long in the tooth, a little over the top. I think there's some fun stuff in those films. I also think they went a little crazy. But, Resident Evil franchise is known to do that. So there is a new movie coming. This could connect to that as well. I think it would be very smart on Capcom's part to start teasing connecting games, or at least games that ship alongside some of their big properties. We're all gamers here. We love playing video games, but having a Resident Evil TV show or a movie reaches an audience that's far greater than games, and that can, hypothetically come back to the front of playing video games together. And so this could be something that works in that way, which is interesting because right now Capcom is letting you sign up for this beta. You will be able to try it, but this is for basically like Capcom ambassadors. So you have to have a login and everything. Like this means you're already in the loop. You know what's going on. You're a big RE fan.
They're giving you better chances of getting in the closed beta if you are really good at Resident Evil. Yeah. So if you have platinum ranking, you're like 10 times more likely to get picked, whereas if you have silver, you're only twice as likely.
Yeah, exactly. And so it could be something that's part of that. Either way, that's awesome because there's a lot of really cool Resident Evil stuff happening. Now, I do want to mention two things really quick. Two games that we are sort of theorizing will appear eventually because they just kind of have to. One of them is the Code Veronica remake. Like I said before, that actually technically comes after Resident Evil 3 in terms of the release list. But, you know, 2, 3, 4 makes a little more sense to the average consumer. But video games get confusing. What can you do? That would be really cool to see. It'd be cool to see a multiplayer mode connected to that. On top of that, Resident Evil Revelations was a series that felt like it was going into franchise territory for a while. We got Resident Evil Revelations 1 and then 2, which got ported to pretty much everything. Came out just over 5 years ago. Revelations 3 is something that would be very, very welcome right now. That is pretty much third-person action, over the top, sort of the RE4 lineage of Resident Evil games, rather than the stuck camera or the first person stuff we saw in 7 or 8. So that'd be really cool too. There's a lot of different opportunities for Resident Evil to reappear in some way, or they just do a collection of a bunch of the classic games, and put it on the next gen consoles. There's a number of ways they can celebrate this franchise. 25 years is a big milestone, and so I'm really hoping we get to see some cool stuff out of it.
Yeah, I mean, at the absolute very least, we're going to see more Resident Evil 8 Village, which looks extremely cool. And it doesn't look like they're going to be stopping making Resident Evil stuff anytime soon. So, obviously, if you want to hear more about it, keep locked to IGN because we talk about those Resident Evil games, movies, and shows here plenty. What do you think we're going to see at this Capcom showcase? Let us know in the comments. And for everything Umbrella Corp, zombies, Nemesis, Tyrant, all those good things, keep it right here on IGN.
Witches, dogs,
Yeah, it really
sharks.
just all of that stuff.